Timmy, did you know that you could make nearly $500 million by destroying a few perfectly good companies?
Jeepers, no. How could we even do that?
Well, Timmy, you can't. But people who aren't poor can take a cue from one great American, former presidential candidate Mitt Romney, and use a little thing called private equity to make a whole stinking pile of money.
Mitt Romney? He sounds like a Muppet.
I love Big Bird.
Timmy, could a Muppet come up with such a cunning strategy as borrowing millions of dollars and forcing somebody else to pay that money back?
Kinda depends on which one. Maybe the corporate vulture one.
Corporations are people, my friend.
So, people vultures?
Now, we're gonna need to establish a few alternative facts to the American public about the potential benefits of private equity firms. Such fantastically theoretical benefits as helping struggling companies to become profitable, or creating jobs, perhaps even being decent, upstanding members of society at large, and occasionally paying taxes. Then, we'll set about doing what private equity companies do best.
Golly, all those other things sound good. I can't possibly imagine what these companies do best, Mr. Corporate.
Why, buying companies to dismantle them so we can sell them for parts.
My uncle does that every time his car breaks down.
Timmy, literally nobody cares about your uncle. You see, our goal is to use cheap credit to purchase a company in what's called a leveraged buyout.
Holy cats, Mr. Corporate, what on earth could that possibly mean?
Well, it means that we will help out the target company by loading it up with debt, extracting value through force, and making that very company pay back the loans we've taken out.
Some kid at my school does that.
Well, he sounds like a real go-getter, Timmy.
He's a bully.
As soon as the check clears, I'll let you go.
So they have to pay back the loans you take out so that they can hand their company over to you. My mommy and daddy took out a loan to buy our house, but at least we get to live in it.
Well, for now.
I'm waiting in rapt, childlike wonder at what Machiavellian scheme comes next, Mr. Corporate.
We target solid companies that aren't doing quite as well as they could be, but who have very nice cash flow. And that means they bring in a lot of money even if they aren't that profitable.
So these companies didn't really need our help after all?
Well, they sure will after our leveraged buyout is complete.
I drink your milkshake.
The newly acquired company will have quite a bit of debt that we've saddled them with.
What an amazing gift.
And because they're not likely to be able to pay that debt off, they're forced to slash costs.
Holy hostile takeover. How can they do that, Mr. C?
Jobs, Timmy. With our benevolent help, we will shepherd this poor, blighted company through the delicate process of firing workers and slashing costs everywhere they can.
Yeah.
Gee, that's not swell.
But Timmy, usually for a period of time, profits will begin to increase, despite our rather healthy management fees cutting into their bottom line. But in the long term, the company is often mortally wounded because they're not investing in anything but purely making us a profit.
Jeepers, aren't we gonna be left holding the bag when the company goes belly up?
Well, of course not, Timmy. You see, we'll simply sell the company to somebody else and let them deal with the consequences.
That's called passing the buck. My daddy said.
Nobody cares, Timmy. And since these companies often show a record profit before they're sold, we make a pretty penny out of that deal.
What if people won't buy our lifeless husk of a company?
Well, we'll declare bankruptcy, that's all.
I declare bankruptcy!
Or rely on government bailouts.
I thought you were about small government.
Not if we make a profit, Timmy.
Won't we have to pay a lot of taxes on these leveraged buyouts?
Well, that's the peach of the deal, Timmy. Since there's a loophole written into the code, we can deduct interest payments from our taxes, depriving the greedy, freeloading government of the money it would need to help take care of these workers that we've innocently displaced after we downsized them.
But why would these companies sell in the first place if we're just gonna drive their business into the ground and fire everybody?
Because we'll pay off the top executives with lucrative bonuses, my good lad. We make a lot of money, and the only people who are mildly inconvenienced are the workers, who will now have a lot more spare time to develop a hobby or to work on all those little honeydew projects their wives have been nagging about for so long.
So what if the government decides to change the rules to protect these people's jobs?
We'll simply purchase any number of politicians to vote for the policies that allow this all-American business practice to continue. And that shouldn't be too difficult, considering current U.S. Senator Mitt Romney and the good people of Bain Capital are in our back pocket.
Bain Capital? Now he sounds like a Muppet supervillain. What if all this leads to complete economic collapse?
Well, that's a risk we're willing for the American people to take.
My daddy says the problem is these damn companies closing factories and abandoning the workers that helped make them successful in the first place. Why don't we just create our own business from the ground up? And, hire people.
Well, because this is easier, Timmy.
Teacher says the easiest thing isn't always.
Your teacher moonlights at Starbucks, okay? Timmy, a humble company like ours could purchase a business like Stage Stores for $10 million, take it public, make $184 million before they file for bankruptcy about 12 years later. Think of the benefits.
But how many people did we put on the streets?
Oh, I don't know. A lot. But don't forget, it's not just people losing their jobs. The ones who find themselves with a seat at the end of this big game of musical chairs, why, they'll find they're making less than ever before, with even fewer benefits, which is another big feature of these deals for us.
That's a bug, not a feature.
Take American Pad and Paper. $5 million invested, $107 million in dividends. Bankrupted in 8 years.
I like being able to fire people who provide services to me.
Jeepers, what the
Or maybe $27 million for Dade Bearing, where we can borrow $230 million in shares, cash out, and declare bankruptcy within a decade.
What is wrong with you?
Or over $100 million from KB Toys, the Kansas City Bolt and Nut Company, Finger Hut. No one outfingers the hut, Timmy, no one.
Okay, I gotta go.
Dunkin' Donuts, who doesn't love a delicious dry donut with a side order of nearly $2 billion in debt?
I'm walking away now.
I'll have you know, I'm claiming the full length of this session for purposes of my community service.